Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikol Murphy with MomComplicated.com, and I am also the co-founder of North Carolina Blogger Network, also known as NC Blogger Network, and a lot of people know it as NCBN. Tonight is Wednesday at 8 o'clock, which means that we are here for Blogging411 to talk for 30 minutes about blogging. And this week we are super excited about our topic. It has already created quite a buzz, and we're excited to get to it. But before we start, let me please allow Allison to introduce herself.
Hey guys, I'm Allison. I am the other co-founder of the North Carolina Blogger Network, which is where I'm spending so much of my wonderful time right now because I'm super excited about that project. I'm also a freelance writer and content strategist. My content strategy website is allisonbcarter.com, and I blog creatively at Go Dance Sker Mom.
And now I would love to introduce our very exciting special guest tonight, which is Molly Stillman from Still Being Molly. We're very excited to have you, Molly. So if you don't mind, just go ahead and take a second and introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Molly Stillman, and like they said, I'm from Still Being Molly, and I have been blogging for about, well, you know, I always say, like, if you count the live journal, which is my hashtag throwback, if you count the live journal, I've probably been blogging for over 10 years, but I guess in the space that I have now for about 8. Started actually the September after I graduated from college. So, yes, I've been blogging there for about 8 years, and I just love it. I write about fashion and style and beauty. I share recipes and money tips, yes, personal finance tips, and also just kind of life as a mom and photography and anything else that I like to talk about. It's definitely a little bit all over the place, but I'm a little bit all over the place, so I think it matches my personality pretty well.
That's awesome. So, Molly, the reason I thought about you for this topic, which is, how to be personal on your blog without being vulnerable. There's a very specific Instagram, I believe it was, picture of you and Lily both biting into like a pretzel and a cracker at the same time, and you guys have the same exact expression on your face, and it was pretty much that you guys were over it. It was like 5, you were both over it, and you were just ready, and you weren't saying that motherhood was terrible, you weren't whining, you were just stating the facts that, you know what, it's been a long day, I still love my family and whatnot, but we're kind of done. Yeah. And I thought it was so well played that I wanted to address how to be personal on your blog and in your online life without making yourself or your family or your business vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So I think that we need to talk about what it means to be personal and what it means to be vulnerable first, because the title caused some reactions online. So Allison, why don't you let us know, like, what's in your opinion when you read that title, like, what is it to be personal on your blog or online or in social media to you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that you have to be personal. I mean, you have a unique story, you have a unique voice. That's why you started blogging. That's why people are going to be attracted to your blog. If you're not personal and if you're not telling your stories, then you're not going to reach anybody. Nobody's going to really care that much about who you are. You'll notice that even big bloggers who do sort of fashion, like Molly said, or DIY, they always insert their own personal stories into there. And we've mentioned this on previous Blogging411 episodes. It's what keeps you coming back, right? You feel like you get to know the people. You feel like you get to have a sense of who they are. You might be following something that's going on in their life that's coming out in their posts, and you're friends with them. Like, you feel like you could sit down and have a glass of wine with them and talk about life. But then there's also that fine line about being so personal that people get that, oh my God moment, like, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable here. And I think that that's hard to balance.
Right. I think the biggest thing for me has sort of been what is comes from at what point, like, would I feel okay talking to a stranger on the street about a particular topic? If I would not feel okay with sharing with a stranger on the street the deep, intimate details of my marriage, then I'm not going to share them. Because the truth is that sometimes we can get very clouded with, oh, I'm writing this blog post and it's just me and my computer, and then I hit publish and it just goes into my own little space of the internet, but you don't realize that, like, that can be seen by anyone. Anyone can read it, anyone can see it, and so at what level of comfort are you with anyone reading or seeing what you're sharing? And I think, like, one of the things that's so telling is, like, if, for example, like, you read a blogger's blog and maybe they have, 50 readers, and then all of a sudden they write a blog post that just takes off. It goes viral, and then suddenly, 100,000, 200,000, a million people have read a particular article, and then all of a sudden they're going back and they're reading your archives and they're nitpicking every little thing that you're doing. You have to think about those things, and certainly as I've, I guess, matured, if that's even a term that I should comfortably use, as I've matured in my blogging career, if you even want to call it that, is that I've gone back and I've made some of my previous posts private, because I'm like, why did I write that? I don't even know. And certain things I'm like, you know what, I'm going to keep that up, because that was a period of my life that I went through, and I'm okay with it, and I will own it. But if I'm not willing to own a post in front of a complete stranger, then I won't publish it. So, like, I even think about, like, if I were to take this blog post and I were to go out to the middle of the street and yell the words of it at the top of my lungs to everyone in my cul-de-sac, like, would I be comfortable with that? Like, sure, that would be a weird scenario, but as far as, like, the content, I just kind of think about it that way. Or, like, if you think about when you're on a plane and you're sitting next to a stranger and you get to talking and you get to sharing things, you might get to know that person, but you're certainly not going to share, like, the deepest, intimate details of your life with that stranger right next to you on the airplane, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I distinguish personally being personal and being vulnerable, because I have certainly shared some extremely personal things on my blog, but those are things that I might not even necessarily, I would say, be proud of, but those are things that I'm willing to talk about, I'm willing to share, because I think those are experiences that people can relate to, but I'm not going to share really personal, intimate details of my life that I don't want people outside of my immediate friends or my immediate family to talk about or know.
You just said something really interesting too that I don't even I want people to really hear and understand, is that part of being personal on your blog is sharing failures, right? And I think that a lot of times we can think of vulnerability in a couple different. Think about it as like vulnerable because I'm putting my home address out there and I'm going on vacation and people could rob me, or I'm vulnerable because I'm putting my kids out there. I'm vulnerable because I'm putting my finances out there. But with like putting failure out there, or I'm not showing the perfect picture, or I can tell you guys I have DIY'd some crafts that have been terrible. They have been so bad. Do you share those on your blog? Like, do you share those failures or those shortcomings? And I think everybody has a different level of that, but part of being personal is sharing all sides of you, and that's part of that authenticity, right? Like, not trying to speak like, here I am, the perfect Stepford wife, like, this is me, and this is what I'm bad at, and this is what I'm good at. This is where I struggle. I'll struggle alongside of you, and this is where I'll succeed. Maybe I can inspire you.
Right.
Right. Yeah, so what I was going to say is that being personal is staying true to your reactions and your authentic self. So being personal online, you still react how you would react. You're still going to laugh at the things that you laugh at. You're still going to be offended by the things that you're going to be offended by, and you still have those boundaries. And as long as they stay true to who you are, then I think that is what being personal is to me. And then I would definitely back you guys up as far as being vulnerable means that you guys are okay with exactly what you're sharing, and you've kind of done that gut check, and you've done that check with your family and said, like, these are things I'm going to share, these are things I'm not going to share. you know, X, Y, and Z. But so I wanted to bring up a point that was brought up on our event page on Google Plus, and it was, I guess, towards our title, and it was that Stout said that he was going to have to fundamentally disagree with the premise. If you're not making yourself at least a little vulnerable, then you're not really being personal. And then personality without vulnerability is a facade or a character and lacks authenticity. And it says, I'm curious to hear what you guys say about that. And so my answer to that is that I'm comfortable with who I am. And this is who I am. I don't have time to be anybody else. So whatever you see is what you get, and I'm okay with that. I think twice, hopefully, most of the time when I put out content and when I'm speaking and on Hangouts. And so that is, to me, I am being personal, but no, I'm not going and saying like, gee, you know, in my childhood, X, Y, and Z. So I think that's the difference between being authentic and being personal. And so
I will add really quick, and then Molly can take it away because I'm sure she has a lot to say on this. But the posts for me that always have done the best, the posts that have always gone the farthest, gotten the widest reach, gotten picked up from people, were the ones where I had butterflies in my stomach when I hit publish. They were the ones that I had a hard time being okay to share, and there's something about that nervous energy of that vulnerability. Like, obviously, I'm still staying within the confines of what I'm comfortable sharing with the public, but it was still just really hard for me to get out, and it was hard for me to share it. And those were always the ones that people respond to the most because there's something about that that comes across in your writing.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I kind of go back to, and one thing I've been thinking about is a little over 2 years ago now. I guess it's been about, I don't know, but it's been over 2 years since I shared my story of how I became debt-free. And that post was by far the most nerve-wracking post I've ever written, ever in the history of humanity.
That was how I found you. That was how I found you, was through that post and that series, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, so it's, you know, because, and for those of you that haven't read my blog or don't know, you know, I basically shared my story of how I was a year out of college and I was $36,000 in debt, and it wasn't student loan debt, it was credit card debt, and it was ugly, ugly credit card debt, and it was totally my fault, and every little bit of it was absolutely my fault, and making really poor financial decisions. And that was a really, really, really tough thing for me to talk about because my family didn't know, my dad didn't know, my sister didn't know, like nobody knew that I was in that kind of financial trouble. And I had hid it, I had kept it hidden for a really long time. And so I had come out on the other side, I had gotten myself out of debt, and it was a really tough journey. But I finally just put it all out there, and I said, here's how I got into debt, and here's how I got out of debt, and here's how you can get out of debt if you're in the same situation. And that post, I guess you could say, went viral, and I was flooded with emails from people just saying like, oh my gosh, thank you. Nobody ever talks about this. Nobody ever addresses it, because it's like, it's one of those things where it's people are ashamed or afraid to talk about money, and it just becomes this like taboo subject. But the fact of the matter is that there's so many people who come out of college or who are in college like I was and just have incredibly poor financial education, and I was one of them, and I had to learn the hard way. And so my goal has been, if one person cannot make the same mistakes I did, then I've considered it a success. And since that, I started writing a financial series, and so I write about things like getting out of debt and how to plan for retirement in your 20s and 30s, and how to you know, how to save for the future when you're single, or how to combine finances when you get married. And so I've started talking about all these things that people don't want to address for some reason, because it's a vulnerable in some ways topic, but it's a personal topic. And just the feedback that I've gotten, I mean, I have so many people who have emailed me now and said, like, I'm on my way to being debt-free because of you. And that has been one of those things that I'm like, I'm brought to tears sometimes because I'm like, are you serious? Like me? Like what? I'm nobody. But like that's awesome, and that's the kind of thing that I think that makes being personable versus like being overly sharing. That's not even a word. Being over the top, I guess, and in people's faces and making them uncomfortable, while still like being true to yourself and being honest and really sharing sort of the nitty gritty, and people I think can connect with that.
Well, that's the key, right? So if you're being personal and you're sharing your story in a way that people can connect with you, that's what blogging is. Like, that is what blogging is all about. If you're sitting there and you're like, me, I, la, 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 and nobody has a comment to say because they're like, I so do not understand you or what you're talking about, and it sounds like you're just holding up a blog mirror. But if you're sharing your personal story in a way that people can really connect to you and respond to you, that's the sweet spot of blogging. So put yourself out there, put your unique voice out there. I mean, everybody has their own rules and their own things about what they're comfortable with. I am incredibly protective of my marriage. For whatever reason, it's me and my husband, who I love very much, and adults are adults, and let's be honest, marriage is not always easy, but it's also very beautiful, and I just don't share marriage. That's just my personal, like, that's my sacred thing. It's my sacred space. It's my beautiful space. I love my husband, and I just, like, that's what I've learned. Like, that's where my vulnerability is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say that I don't put my children on the internet until my 7-year-old came in for his goodnight hug. So there's always that. But, so there was a point, speaking of the financial thing, we've been in this transition in our family where we've decided that I'm going to stay home. And we've also decided that we're going to pay cash for things. So that was really easy because I still had my Toyota Sienna minivan, and it didn't really affect me. But then when we needed a second car, and I said, well, we're going to buy whatever we can get with whatever we have saved for our car fund, it was only $1,500. So our second car is a 1999 Cadillac DeVille. Well, that was fine because I didn't have to drive it. And so I'm still living in this whole pretend land, like I'm really actually making the sacrifices when I wasn't. Fast forward to when my car goes in the shop for several weeks, and then I have to drive the Cadillac. So that was a point where I was feeling very, very vulnerable. And I kind of panicked a little bit. And so what I did was I owned it. I took a picture of myself, no makeup, in my normal like yoga pantness, standing in front of the Cadillac, and I announced to the world, like, if you see me driving in July in this Cadillac with no air conditioning, you need to wave, because I'm owning, I'm owning all these things that I said I was going to do. So that's another way of handling the vulnerability. Like, if you've talked the talk and now you're afraid to walk the walk, like, just get on there, own it, put it out there, and it's incredibly freeing. To do that. Like, obviously sometimes it's not as easy as like saying, oh, this is their second car and this is what I'm going to drive around town. But, just look at that and then think about that, because that's also a really good barometer of how you're living your life. Like, if you don't want people to find out stuff about you, then that's probably not necessarily healthy.
Remember, like, everybody wants to follow a journey. Everybody, you can, just from a practical point of view, gosh, you can keep blog readers by bringing them along with you on your journey by saying, look, I'm going to go vulnerable on this. I'm going to pay cash. It's not going to be easy. You're going to see some terrible pictures of me, but come grow with me or see how this goes. And, like, here's my update. Like, this week was really hard and that sort of thing. I think that one of the things that people have a hard time with when it comes to blogging, and you guys might disagree with me on this, is the security issues. Like, oh, if I post too much on social media, people will know where I am. If I'm always checking into Foursquare, if I'm, posting on my Instagram photo map all the time. And part of me kind of feels like, and again, feel free to disagree, they're going to be able to find you anyway. Is that a terrible thing to say? I mean,
I completely agree. And it's also one of those things, too, that I want to be like, nobody cares about you that much. Like, you are not Barack Obama. Like, you are not Beyonce. You are not, like, I'm sorry. Like, you're not the President of the United States. You're not Bebe. You're not J-Lo. Like, nobody cares. Like, nobody cares about you that much. Like, I really, I really hate to say it. And if somebody really, truly does care about you that much that they want to find you based on something that has been geotagged, they're going to find it anyway. Like, no, like, Joe Schmo, Joe Blog Reader is not that much of a creeper that they're like coming to the park that you hang out at to be like, yeah, people might disagree with me on that, but I just want to be like, I mean, think about you and your own behaviors. Like when you see a blog, you know, a blogger that you love, that you're like, I love this blogger, I read her all the time, and like when you see that she's checked in at, you know, Target, like, are you stalking her at Target to go say hi? No, you're not. Like, because, but if you found out Beyonce was at your local Target, you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? Am I wrong?
Yeah. Okay, so I have to jump in here because I am probably the most paranoid out of the three people here as far as safety and internet safety. Like, I'm the one that, like, watches everything, and I'm like, no way. Like, oh, my gosh, I'm terrified now. And, you know, even my kids are like, what is your deal? Like, just put a picture of us on Facebook already. And so I had a really, really, really hard time with this when I started blogging and whatnot. And I was actually sitting in Phil Buckley's living room, and he said the same exact thing. He's like, you're not an A-list celebrity star. Like, get over yourself. Like, people are not gonna care. You know, like, he has put online like his home address, and I've about passed out just because I live in the same town, you know, and and you know, he's just said, like, you know, you get over it. But I do feel like you take some precautions. No, you don't geotag everything. You know, like, you don't say, like, I'm going on vacation for 10 days. Well, you know, those you do take. You're smart about it, but I don't think you get paranoid.
I mean, like, for example, like, if somebody really wanted to find you, like, they could go to whois.com, type in your URL, and all your information is right there. Phone number, email, mailing address, like, it's all there. Like, it's not hard to find people these days. And yes, I am definitely very, like, as being protective part, especially with having a child, like, this is something I thought a lot about before our daughter was born. And it's, for me, it's more the content that I share about her. And again, certainly, like you were saying, like, I'm not going to, like, I don't geotag photos of where I am as far as, like, when I'm at home. Like, if I'm in San Francisco or if I'm in DC, like, I'll geotag, I'll check in somewhere because, like, I don't live there. But I'm not going to check into my house or anything, or, like, the places I regulate. That's, I don't know.
Regularly attend.
I regularly attend. But as far as, like, what I decided was comfortable for me as far as the security was more as far as, like, content, because she's a baby and she can't make decisions for herself and she has no control of what is shared. So I think about it in a similar way to, like I was saying, with, like, talking with strangers. I think about, okay, what information, if the roles were reversed and I was a baby and, you know, my mom was in this day and age, what information would I be okay being out there in 15, 20 years? Like, if she's a teenager or you know, 15, 16, 17 years old, like, what information is she going to be okay with being out there? So no, I'm not going to talk about her blowouts and diaper rashes and stuff like that. Like, I'm not going to talk about that because nobody cares and nobody needs to know. But, you know, things about her development and, like, cute things that she does, like, yeah, I'm going to share that because it's adorable. And when she's 15 or 16, she can be like, I was 1. Like,
It is a good point on how to share that. Because that was kind of my point, was like, you know, this is their online reputation. Like, they should be in control of it. But, you know, when they're in middle school and they get on social media, like, that's just going to be, you know, because they're going to make good decisions then. But well, Dustin...
There are, to that point, a lot of mom bloggers who I followed for a couple of years who are now getting out of the game simply because they've said, like, I can't share anymore.
Yeah.
like, my kids are older now, I can't share anymore. Like, it's just not my place. And I applaud that, you know. I think that that's really hard to do, and it's really hard to make that decision when you've built a brand around being a mom blogger. But to take a step back and realize, like, my personal story is now somebody else's personal story, and to get away from the mom thing, like, I do that just if I'm trying to tell a story about my personal life about a friend. If I'm, you know, I was just recently published in a book, and I sent the essay to the woman that I wrote about because it was her story too, and I knew she would be okay with it, so I was okay, like, moving forward. But sometimes I'll use pseudonyms, or sometimes I'll just randomly mention something as an aside anonymously, because it's being conscious of the fact that words have power, and stories have power, and bloggers have power, and when you put it out there, understand that it's not just your story you're telling. If you're bringing someone else in, you're crafting a reputation for them. So in relation to kids and everybody else, be personal, tell your side of things, but, you know, be careful with how you're treating other lives around you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I wanted to say really quick that, hi, Dustin. Dustin has tuned in, and he agrees. He said, agreed, Allison and Molly, you're not J-Lo. Paparazzi is not going to track you down and invade your privacy. So, but in all fairness, there were some moms in Holly Springs trying to find me at Target when I was making my Target videos. And they flat out were like, we've been looking for you and trying to find you to photobomb
Well,
you.
you know, I have heard stories of bloggers who end up with stalkers, and it comes from their blog. Like, but that's like 2 stories out of how many millions of bloggers that I know now. Okay, maybe million is an exaggeration, but hundreds of bloggers that I know now. And the other thing too, again, you know, to the point of they're probably gonna find you anyway, and the person's kind of crazy anyway. That was just a bad mix of a lot of bad mojo going on at the same time.
Yeah, there are some people who's just, their screws are a little bit loose, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. So.
That's awesome. Well, we are getting to the end of our half an hour, and this is the time where we want to let everyone kind of talk about what they've got going on in the next couple weeks, anything big and exciting. So I'm just going to kind of throw that out there. If, Molly, I know you've got an exciting event that you are rescheduling, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so we will be, we haven't announced the new date yet, but you can check the TriFab blog. So TriFab is TRIFABB.com, and it's going to be a mom's night out. So if you're a mom or a mom to be, it's a mom's night out. So we're going to have some drinks and cocktails and hors d'oeuvres, and we'll have a DIY jewelry bar, so you can make some jewelry, which would be really fun. And it's going to be at Progeny Shop in Raleigh. It's in 5 Points, and
feel free to geotag that when you come. When you come to Progeny for this TriFab event, geotag away, everybody.
Cutest shop. If you have not checked out Progeny, I am in love with it. It's just so cute. And yes, the items there are a wee bit pricey, but it is just, I mean, there's some things that are on the lower end, but I mean, in general, it's like a, you know, luxury kids shop. But they also have a great little area for story time, and they have like a little teepee with some toys that your kids can play with, and it is the cutest little place. So if you haven't been and you're a mom in the Raleigh-Durham area, you need to go check it out. It's so cute. But yeah, so that'll be coming up hopefully in October, November. We have not scheduled a new date officially yet, but I will let you know for sure when that comes up.
Awesome. Allison, do you have anything going on?
Oh my gosh, yes, you know that. Nikol is my business and email spouse. So I've got, of course, the North Carolina Blogger Network is heated up immensely. We're pretty excited about all the offerings. We have some new stuff coming into the members resources portal very soon, where you have to be a member to get into that. And we have a couple of events that are in the hopper that we're also super excited about. And there will be member benefits and discounts for those too, so make sure you check that out. I am going to be speaking on Friday, if you're watching this later. That's Friday, what is it, the 3rd?
October 3rd.
October 3rd, here in Raleigh for Illuminate. It is for women, small business owners, all about ramping up their business. I'll be speaking about SEO, search engine optimization. Then October 11th, I'm going to be at the Bloggy Boot Camp in Atlanta for the SITS girls, and there I'll be speaking about how to create content that really helps you connect with your readers and how to stay strong with your content. You can't ever say I've got writer's block when you're a blogger. So I'll be around, out and about, and in the meantime, still trying to keep it all together. I'm excited. There are lots of good things going on, folks.
There are. And y'all, if you have not checked out the NC Blogger Network, go to ncbloggerNetwork.com. We are booking some superstars into 2015. So we're really, really, really excited. We're working super hard on some really awesome, intimate events. And thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.